Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
Everybody here at the Sukup booth, this is the time for us to hopefully drop some new information, exciting news, and great content on your ears. This is the Farm for Profit Podcast. If this is the first time you're tuning into us, we try to have a little bit of fun and make learning entertaining. Edutainment. Really? You're going to go
You haven't heard that before?
I've heard of that, but
That's what it is.
I think we're a little bit better than edutainment.
Okay.
But yes, we certainly like to have a little bit of fun while discovering something that might help your farm or business make a little bit more money. That's the goal here behind Farm for Profit. So we're excited here to feature PatternAg and their partners, Earth Optics. So we're going to have a great conversation to learn a little bit about how we can use predictive analytics in and around your farm. So we've got two guests today to join Corey and I up here on stage. We've got Mike and Britt, and we're going to let them introduce themselves. And of course, ladies first. Britt, why don't you start?
Well, thank you. I'm Britt Buchanan. I'm the VP of Sales at Earth Optics. I've been with Earth Optics for coming up on 3 years now, and I've worked in the agriculture industry for a good 12, 13 years, predominantly in technical sales. So, first time at Farm Progress, though.
All right, so that was Britt. Now we're going to go to Mike.
Hi, Mike Tweedy. I'm head of sales at PatternAg. I've worked in agriculture my entire career, and from a 7th generation farm in southern Illinois.
All right, so you still farm now?
No, it's not an active farm anymore. My dad retired.
Okay, and it ends there, huh?
And it ends there.
Oh, how do you feel about that?
Bittersweet.
Yeah.
He put this time in, and as well as working at the university, but it's always nice to go home to the farm and know that it's always going to be in our family.
So you've got an Earth Optics hat on and a PatternAg shirt on. What's the relationship between the two of them?
Harvesting is the moment of truth, and you need a combine that delivers. Meet the John Deere S-Series combines, engineered for the ultimate performance in any crop condition.
With cutting-edge technology, unparalleled efficiency, and maximum grain quality, the S-Series ensures that you get the most out of every acre. Elevate your harvest with precision and reliability that only John Deere can offer.
Contact your local John Deere dealer or visit Deere.com to learn more. John Deere, run with us.
So we started our partnership this past spring 2024, and this fall that partnership's grown. We're doing an increasing amount of work together very quickly because there is some great synergy between our offerings.
Okay, so now we're going to have to get the background of both companies so we
That's
can
right.
try and dive into what that synergy is. So who wants to tackle the PatternAg side of this?
I'll take PatternAg. So PatternAg was founded in 2018, and we study soil biology. And use that to determine what are the risks for the upcoming crop season for the grower, and then we take all that biological data and we turn that into a prescriptive risk-based crop plan for the grower.
So soil biology, and I think of soil samples and things like that. Are you guys doing soil samples and all that?
Well, therein comes the collaboration with Earth Optics from the nutrient side and from the tillage side. We specialize on the pattern side in the biology. That is the newest space for measuring risks in the field. Up until a few years ago, it was not available because it couldn't be DNA sequencing couldn't be done at scale in agriculture, but it can be now.
DNA sequencing in the soil?
That is correct.
Normal soil tests don't do that, right?
Nope. No, normal soil test is a chemical test that looks at nutrient values of your macros and your micros.
So, okay, before we get to the next one, I'm kind of geeking out here. Like, I know the normal soil tests, and then you got your Haney's and things like that. So, like, when I get a soil sample back from you, what's on the page?
Well, you'll actually get a digital crop plan from us is
Okay.
what you'll receive. So we specialize in corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, and sugar beets. And so whenever we run an analysis on that field, we are specifically looking for pathogens like corn rootworm, soybean cyst nematode, sudden death syndrome, red crown rot. A lot of the bad stuff that's out in the field, we're picking up the DNA signature of those, and we not only measure how much, or not only measure whether it's there, but how much is there. We determine the risk level of what that is, and then what steps you need to do to mitigate that risk for the upcoming crop season. So on average here, we're in central Iowa right now. We ran our soil productivity index, and we found that a lot of soybean growers are leaving about 17, 18 bushels on the table just based on not understanding what their risks are in that field and then being able to take action on it. So to answer your question, what do you get back from us? People really don't want to know how the sausage is made. They just want to know, what do I do?
Right.
You get a crop plan.
Okay.
So with a push of a button, the trusted advisor or our dealer will then be able to determine about 80 to 90% of that crop plan: hybrid, variety, seed treatment, other inputs, fertilizer recommendations, as well as tillage prescription with a push of a button.
18 bushel an acre.
Yep.
That's a lot more than any one product could actually, ever say. It's a lot of 3 and 4s and, 5s.
Well, yeah, and it's not just one thing that's doing that. It's nutrients, it's compaction, it's biofertility attributes, not having the right biofertility levels in your soil. It's pathogens, being able to manage for those things. So we look at those, and then we turn around and put that into a very simple and easy to understand crop plan that their trusted advisor can give to the grower.
So are you very familiar with the soils right here around the Farm Progress Showgrounds?
We are.
Can I take a stab at one of our biggest yield drags in soybeans?
Sure.
Cyst nematode?
No,
Really?
That's actually not one of the most undermanaged pathogens that's in soybeans here in central Iowa.
Okay.
The most undermanaged pathogen in soybeans is going to be red crown rot.
Really?
Wow.
Yep.
And what do you do?
And that's about an average of anywhere from 5 to 10 bushels is what we found on the 300 fields that we tested and ran through our model.
That's $100 an acre.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna write that down because I feel like we're leaving the other side of it out, but I do want to come back to that.
Oh, she's very patient.
I know, but I want to back up. We'll get back to it,
Yep.
right? So, Earth Optics, how does that come into the picture?
So the cool thing about the combined offering is that part of the expense of getting these data insights is actually the visit to the field where you collect the soil. And so Earth Optics on the agronomy focus has 2 data layer components to bring to the table here. One is TillMapper. So we're mapping compaction inch by inch across the field. We're using both sensors. So we use 2 sensors, electromagnetic induction and ground penetrating radar. We combine that with a ground truth measurement. For TillMapper, the ground truth measurement is a DCP, digital cone penetrometer reading, that measures pounds per square inch in the soil for the top 18 inches. So that results in a map that shows you not just where do I have compaction in my field, but at what depth is it an issue.
That's interesting, because I know that there's a lot of push lately as far as conservation practices go, and it talks about carbon credits to reduce tillage or go to strip till, but to fully understand where that compaction layer in your field is key, because that's going to help you make some management decisions, but it goes beyond that.
That's right. And I think we might need all our time here today because we're talking about agronomy out of the gate here, but Earth Optics bread and butter is really in the carbon space today in terms of leveraging our direct service arm in soil sampling activities. So we'll talk about that too. There's a conversation on the carbon front, but you're right, there's a major synergy between TillMapper and what results in a tool that we call variable depth tillage. So it's a customizable tool where the trusted advisor on the farm, the agronomist you work with, the retail organization you work with, or the farmer themselves can customize and set a target PSI for the field. That can depend on what crop you're going to plant or even what hybrid you're going to plant. And then what implement depth focus you're going to have. So usually, corn and soybeans, you're going to be at about 4 to 12 inches as your focus zone, maybe deeper for potatoes or sugar beets. You can customize all of those variables so that the output of the tool is a variable depth tillage recommendation that tells you, on average, you don't need to till at all on 20 to 40% of your field to accomplish those goals. So it's not about tillage or no tillage, it's an opportunity to reduce tillage by only tilling where you need to.
Right, that makes sense because, typically if we go set a ripper or field cultivator or something, you set the depth to how you like it and you cover 100% of the field, right? But yet we treat every other acre differently. We have prescriptions for seed and fertilizer and all that kind of stuff. Why aren't we doing that? So that makes me think that we need a special tillage tool.
Great point. So there in the market today are tools so John Deere TrueSet as well as CNH Ecola Tiger are two examples of equipment suites that can ingest this data layer and automatically adjust in the field. That being said, a lot of folks just look at the map and go out and address what the map tells them they need to address, or they use our app that guides them where am I using GPS in the field and what's the recommended depth in the field if they can manually adjust and implement.
Wouldn't that be wild? You're going through the field and you got your ripper buried, and then you hit one of these zones to where it says not, and it just automatically lifts out of the ground.
Yeah.
And the tractor automatically speeds up to 9-10 mile an hour to get to the next spot before it puts itself back into the ground.
It really brings it full circle because we've seen the technology in the tillage pieces, right, come from John Deere, especially one of our partners, that it's hard to okay, that's cool that you can do that, but how do we implement it, right? Because data is great, or this tool is great, but if you don't have one or the other, you have to be able to implement it.
Yeah, I think if you follow Mike and I around for a day, the phrase you'll hear on repeat is actionable insights. Everything we're doing is an actionable insight. In my undergrad, that was a phase, or maybe that phase still exists, where the word sustainability is maybe overused, but what I was taught is there's 3 pillars to sustainability. There's economic sustainability, economic, ecological, and cultural or social. And all of our products hit on all 3 of those pillars. So if we talk about TillMapper specifically, the economic benefit, if you don't till an acre, you're saving $20, $30 in diesel fuel alone. You're also saving time of labor, you're saving wear and tear on equipment. There's a major return on investment economically. Socially, there's a factor because folks have a shorter and shorter window to address tillage in the fall. And so you can't get over every field in many operations. So this gives you a tool to help you prioritize and pick and choose which fields are most important.
So time, labor, but time on the equipment too, right?
That's
on the
right.
hour meter. That's huge.
Yeah. And then agronomically, if you do not disturb soil that doesn't need to be disturbed, there's a huge agronomic benefit there as well.
Because you're not releasing the carbon in the soil and all that, and I suppose that's where the carbon piece comes into play because you can actually track that.
You're right. Spot on.
So are we ready to get into the carbon piece, or what else we want to dive into about this relationship here?
I think one thing we didn't cover on the agronomy front is with 360 Pro, as Mike mentioned, you're getting that biology insight, but you're also getting nutrients. So industry standard nationwide, a little bit variable by region, is about a 2.5 acre grid.
Yep.
That means that on a 100 acre field, you're getting about 40 samples. You're taking 40 smaller averages to get insight to variability on the field. Going back to actionable insight, our approach is different. That sensor reading shows you the variability, and you need far fewer soil samples to go to the lab to get more precision and a better look at the variability and the levels of all your macronutrients, micronutrients, pH, cation exchange capacity in the field.
So what's the sensor look like?
It kind of looks like a parallel rod or stick, and that's the EMI, or electromagnetic induction sensor. And then the ground penetrating radar sensor is basically a box.
And this is mounted typically to a side-by-side, or?
Yep, that's right. Right on the front of a UTV. We run it on pickup trucks. We run it on tractors. We are working on running it on equipment that's already in the field as well.
Oh, really? So it could be done potentially in the future on a piece of equipment that's already making the pass.
That's right.
Huh. Like
There
the
you go.
combine?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
We're playing around. There's interference is a challenge
Okay.
to navigate, so we're trying to find the right bits.
So typical, like you said, is 2.5 acre grids, probably taken every 4 years or so. Are we doing this every year?
Well, this makes it far more economical and efficient because you're only going out into the field and pulling point samples. So you could do like a 5 acre grid equivalent or 7 acre grid equivalent in terms of number of samples that you pull, and do that on a more frequent basis. And you can reuse that same scan data for that processing step year after year.
And for the cost of a 2.5 acre grid, this doesn't cost any more, but you get 100 times the resolution in terms of the output. Why is that important? If you look at the results on a 2.5 acre grid, you get a lot of variability from one zone to another. Well, that matters when you're applying the materials, whether that be lime or whether that be phosphorus or potassium. If you're going from one zone to another that has a 200-pound difference, that belt on the application equipment can't keep up, and so you end up either under or over applying on those zones. When you have the resolution that we have with our nutrient product through Earth Optics, that there's a smoothing factor that can happen as that equipment goes across the field, so you're getting a more accurate representation of what actually needs to go out.
Man, this is a lot. I don't know why haven't I guess I don't know why I haven't heard of this before.
It is.
Besides talking to you. What's up, Snark? That's a Dave question. Oh. Maybe talking to the mic a little
He
bit.
wants you to talk.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that we advertised this episode of being about was using predictive analytics. So we've talked about how we're gathering this data and how we can write some prescriptions, or we can get that feedback from all these data points. But what does predictive analytics mean to you guys?
I would think of it more as predictive agronomy than predictive analytics. The reason I say that is because everything that we're focused on delivering to the grower is based on agronomic practices. And so we're looking forward at what are the threats that are in that field when we do the sampling in the fall of what they're going to be facing in the spring so that they can build that crop plan. So it's predictive agronomy in the sense that we're looking forward.
Is there is predictive analytics or predictive agronomy and AI the same?
Well, AI is used to develop that predictive agronomy
So you are
or that
using
plan. Yes.
some artificial
We are
intelligence.
using machine learning for sure.
Okay.
And are you seeing more and more producers adopt the use of this predictive analytics? Or are we still relying on yield performance from the past year and we're going to continue to use data from historical crops?
Yeah, the adoption rate is pretty high, but I mean, it's still fairly new in the market. We've been in the market for about 3 years commercially, and we're growing at a 3 to 5x rate. So we're getting on more and more acres, but now that we have this collaboration on the nutrient and the tillage side and the carbon side with Earth Optics, we're really bringing a 360-degree view of what is actually happening out in that soil. So they don't have to go to one place to get nutrients. They don't have to go to another place to get to find out about tillage. They don't have to go to multiple different places. They could go to one source and have all of their data in one place.
That's a nice feature. I think Dr. Fred Belo talks about weather is one of the largest percentages. I'm not going to say the percentage because I'd be wrong, but it's larger than anything else that affects your crop yield and performance. How do you guys account for the things you can't control, like weather?
Well, Mother Nature gets a vote for sure.
Yep.
And so what we do is we provide the grower the risks that they're going to be facing in the market or out in the next year, so that they can build the best crop plan to mitigate those risks, and then hopefully, Mother Nature is going to cooperate.
Yeah, Mother Nature cooperates almost as well as the timing of this tractor getting started. Have we done a recording yet to where...
No, every recording has had the tractor started.
That's
Yep.
the only way we know that it's truly Farm Progress Show.
It seems appropriate.
Yeah. Our mics are good enough. They'll hear us.
So one of the things that we've been talking to our audience about is certainly as margins get tighter is we want to make sure that they have at least exposure to the latest technology, the latest abilities to make the best decisions possible. And I didn't expect this interview to tell us so much so early on the value in the data that you can provide. When you look at the cost of this, is this something we need to reallocate from another portion of our operation, or is there a solid ROI that comes with addressing the cost of working with the two of you?
Yeah, so great question. Everyone's nutrient sampling, well, I shouldn't say everyone, majority of farms nationwide are soil sampling for nutrients to some extent. So again, that 2.5 acre grid industry standard, what we can do with 360 Pro, where you're getting the nutrients and the biology offering, is only a few dollars more than industry standard pricing for just the nutrient soil sampling activity. So you're getting this new insight. I'll still make your analogy around, like, would you rather a blocky, grainy, black and white TV or a new high definition color one? And oh, by the way, they're almost the same price.
Oh,
That's
definitely.
a great analogy.
Definitely the high definition.
We look better on the blocky, grainy one, though.
We really don't get too many objections on price. When you look at where the risks are and what you're going to gain from making the right cropping decisions, it's all about putting more bushels in the bin. Growers have never had an opportunity to see where their threats are and be able to take action on that, so they intuitively know, look, if I can get my nutrients down to that resolution, I can be much more efficient with the fertilizer that I put out there. If I know what my pathogens are, then I can choose the right varieties and hybrids. I don't have to guess right or try to guess right anymore. And so they really look at the ROI of what am I going to get as the outcome of this, and that is definitely worth the money that they're going to spend on it. Growers are going to spend hundreds of dollars on inputs, right? They're going to spend on tillage. They're going to spend on all of these things. All we're doing is informing on where to put that money.
So I've said it multiple times on the podcast that, having the data, and it's good, solid data, it's not clouded by anything else, the decision is so much easier. Even if you don't want to make that decision, it's so much clearer, and having that is so important.
Yeah, data in and of itself is interesting, but if it's not actionable, then it's worthless. And so what we've done is we've put it in a platform where people can take action. They can look at it. Anybody can look at it and say, okay, do this for the next season, and be able to make smarter decisions because you know what the risks are that are out there.
So do you have anybody using it and making in-season decisions?
Yeah, what it does inform on is fungicide application and scouting. So we are picking up not just below ground pathogens, but we're picking up things like tar spot, northern corn leaf blight, gray leaf spot, and frog eye leaf spot in soybeans and things like that. And those are hugely impactful and important decisions that need to get made. Fungicide applications are not inexpensive, but they have to be timely. And scouting is very inefficient as it is today, because now we can show them where the inoculum is in the field so that they would know exactly where to go in the field and look for expression. So it does inform on in-season practices.
Putting myself in Dave's position here, he sells farms for a living. All we have to go off of is yield monitor and old soil samples. Could that be a value of someone? Like, I'm looking at this farm, and you could actually, maybe you don't do the whole field, but you could grab hey, that field is terrible. You're going to have so much disease, and it's deficient in this and that. Like, that'd be a huge tool.
100%. I mean, soil is where it all starts, and it's a farmer's best asset.
Because in Iowa, we have CSR or CSR2 that tells you how good the soil is. You might have a 90 CSR2 ground, which everyone wants, right? That's the best soil, but it could have the most pathogens in it and all that. Maybe you don't pay that much.
Yeah, it's the ultimate due diligence on a new piece of ground. If you're going to be picking up something to rent, you can get a soil productivity index score on that will tell you what the potential is on that field. But it'll also tell you, what do I need to do if I'm going to pick up this farm? What are the investments that I'm going to have to make on these fields in order to make them maximum production?
So there you go, Corey. As you're chasing more ground, especially, what do they call it, ambulance chaser, you know what kind of cash rent bid you can put out with more data.
There you go. What's the turnaround? I tell you that, hey, I call you up, need this field done. What are you looking at? Yeah,
so we work through a dealer network on the agronomy side, and when they press the button to have this field sampled, we like to be out there within a couple of days of to be sampling. That's weather dependent, obviously. We like to do it post-harvest, but we can do it really any time of the year. But vast majority of our samples are done post-harvest. Once the samples reach our lab in California, which is where all of the analysis is done, whether that is carbon, nutrient, or biological, nutrient is about a 5 to 7 day turnaround. Once it reaches the lab. Till Mapper is actually almost immediate, isn't that right?
Yeah, it's close to a real-time product.
Yeah, wow. Very close to real time. And then the biology takes up to about 2 weeks to get all of that back.
Well, that's not too long.
No.
I don't know what I was expecting.
A normal soil sample would probably be about in that same.
Yeah, we try to match on the nutrient side, but the kind of the standard is about a 5-day turnaround on that so that you can get your nutrient applications done.
So, Britt, is there a ideal farm size to where it makes sense to start working with either one of the two of you, or is it something farms of all sizes can do?
I'd say it's definitely an opportunity for firms of all sizes. This tech stack is really not just a tool for farmers, but it's also a major improvement to what the trusted advisor on the farm has available for themselves in the advising process. So Mike mentioned our partner dealer network. These are folks that we fully equip with our technology suite. We don't charge them for that. We get a commitment for kind of the acres that they're going to support, and they just pay us for data processing and serve the market in their region.
Who's a normal dealer? Is it like a co-op retailer, or can it be a farmer dealer?
Well, it could be all the above. So we have crop consultants, we have seed dealers, we have retail, but that is generally it's whoever the trusted advisor is that grower goes to for building that crop plan. That those are our dealers.
Okay.
So those that are listening should give
Absolutely.
Mike and I a call.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a dealer, you should contact us.
Absolutely. We've done a couple of interviews. One of them that we did was with Boa Safra, and they have a tax credit that you can use to deduct the nutrient value of your soils.
Yep.
Is that a partner of yours, or has your testing been used within that type of a project?
Those are projects that we have recently had some exposure to, and there's definitely a potential opportunity there.
Very good.
Let's get into the carbon side of things then. Like, I can see how it works, but how does it?
Sure. Great question. And I'll just kind of bridge to, we just talked about the partner dealer network. Earth Optics also has our own service arm. So we've got field techs and rigs nationwide, really solid footprint. We're doing probably over 90% of the carbon sampling in grass and rangeland at scale in the carbon marketplace, as well as over 80% in cropland. And when I say the carbon marketplace, that is a big umbrella statement. So there's the inset world, there's the offset world, there's scope 3 projects, CI scores, all these different things. What is a differentiator of Earth Optics is we ground truth everything we do. And so we're in the business of measuring and mapping carbon at scale. We're the most cost-effective, efficient, and accurate way to do it.
So no longer is it an algorithm-based or math equation-based, like you reduce your tillage by this percent, or you quit tilling, you get this much carbon credits.
Exactly. So for a Scope 3 project, which is not a verified project, but it's something that an organization is looking at their supply chain, in that environment, to avoid greenwashing, to really have a solid data set to prove that you are in fact sequestering carbon, which our nation's soil asset is one of our best opportunities to pull carbon out of the atmosphere and put it in the soil long term. And farmers have a really important role in that activity. And so if a buyer of some good wants to look backwards in their supply chain and validate that the farmers in that supply chain are doing things to sequester carbon, which many are, they have an opportunity for a Scope 3 type project. We're the best source to help build out that project, measure it, document it.
So you're like the behind the scenes for a carbon. You're not paying people for.
That's right. We are not a developer. We're an MRV, so we're a measurement and verification service within programs. So in the inset world, so a verified project, we have projects at scale with Vera, with CAR, with B-Carbon, with a number of different verifiers and developers in both grass and rangeland and in cropland.
And I imagine that's pretty important, probably more to the end user or the buyer of the carbon credit, right? Like they want to know that like this is actually what we're buying, right?
Exactly. It's those like Fortune 100 companies who are actually pretty picky about what type of credit they want to buy, because they want to put their money into something that's highly accreditable, and they're trying to invest in offsets that are something that the market at large respects as having made an actual impact.
Right.
It also benefits the grower though too, because if they decide that they want to measure carbon on their properties and then they don't do anything with that for 3 or 4 years, and then all of a sudden a carbon buyer comes along and says, if you meet these requirements, we're going to pay $50, $60, $70 a ton. well, then they have that data. They can go back and get paid for that carbon, whatever they sequestered at that time. So it does give the grower the ultimate flexibility to shop the different carbon programs that are out there.
So is that part of your service? If they're just out there for the agronomic and want you to partner up, are you already just seeing what the carbon capture is?
Yeah, exactly. So if we're there for agronomy offerings, we can add a carbon data layer for quite a reasonable rate. Similarly, for a lot of the carbon programs that we measure for nationwide, whether it's an inset program or an offset program, we have the ability to call the grower and give them the opportunity to take a look at our agronomy tools.
I love this. Then I want to be able to put that, all right, I have 200 tons of carbon that I captured, and put it on Facebook Marketplace. And have someone come, I want $50 a ton, or whatever, or auction it off, have Dave auction it off instead of signing up with just one.
Yeah, well, if they've sequestered that carbon, they should have the ability to do whatever they want with it in the marketplace.
That's where blockchain will come in.
Yes.
We've talked about that as well.
Unlock your equipment's true potential with Steinbauer.
Whether you're looking to boost your power or improve fuel efficiency, Steinbauer has the right performance module to get the job done. Their easy-to-install technology can be a game changer for your operation.
Get more from your machines this harvest season with Steinbauer and start farming smarter today. Visit steinbauer.us now for more details.
Steinbauer, powering the future of farming.
Yeah, I've always said that blockchain needs to be, and also just cryptocurrency in general, like there needs to be a Chicago Board of Trade for the carbon marketplace, right? Just because it's the Wild West right now.
The carbon marketplace is in its infancy, and it is the wild, wild west.
Yep.
Yeah, it's even more wild than the world of podcasting.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Really no rules here. Exactly.
Well,
go ahead.
I want to back up and go, well, if we're going to get off the carbon side, I wanted to ask my question about the red crown rot. And, how do you know that, obviously, is that a bacteria? What are you looking at?
It is a fungal pathogen.
Fungal pathogen, okay.
Yeah, it's relatively new to the Midwest. Most growers, and actually everybody doesn't even know that it exists across the Midwest. It moved up from the Delta into the Midwest. It is really devastating, even more so than probably sudden death syndrome. It's often mistaken for sudden death syndrome in the way that it looks, but it is something that there's one product that can be treated for an emergency exemption right now because it is such a new pathogen. But research done by University of Kentucky that I have read is that you can lose up to 60 to 70 bushel of yield in soybeans. And if you have it in the presence of another pathogen like soybean cyst nematode, it can be complete crop loss. And so knowing that you have that, the treatment for that, the only one that's available, is quite expensive. And so most people wouldn't just automatically go ahead and put that seed treatment on there. But if you know that you have the potential to lose 60% of your yield, then you're probably going to want to spend that plus $20 for that seed treatment.
And is that like a pathogen that's in a lot of soils, and then once it gets to a certain level, you're like, oh, you guys better do something about it?
No, not with red crown rot. Red crown rot is kind of a binary. It's a yes or no,
Okay.
kind of like tar spot and northern corn leaf blight. We don't really put risk levels on there. We tell you that your field is infected. You need to do something about it.
I mean, there's so many microbiologicals or microbes in the soils and pathogens and all that. Like, how did you guys learn all this?
Well, so we specifically look for the ones that are robbing the biggest part of the yield, and we went out, we got really good samples of those. We DNA sequenced them. We have our own library of this DNA so that we know that what we're seeing is what we're seeing.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's kind of like guilt or innocence.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
It's like pass or fail.
Yeah. And so we're actually doing some work with universities in the Midwest where we're identifying the fields with red crown rot so that they can then test different fungicides for efficacy.
And then I imagine the seed companies would get in and maybe start selecting for natural selection and things like that.
Yeah, it's very nascent in the seed industry, so I don't know that there's been a lot of work on varietal selection for red crown rot.
So as you're sitting here on the forefront of this, how are you guys seeing what your partnership's doing, what PatternAg's been doing with that predictive insights, the predictive agronomy? Where's this going? What's next?
Well, really, being able to build that crop plan and roll everything basically 360 degrees of what is happening in the soil, that is the ultimate power of being able to make fundamental change in agriculture. You know, we often get asked, well, why did you start with corn and soybeans? Why didn't you start in, you know, specialty crops where you could have made a lot more money? If you're going to fundamentally make a radical change to the benefit of the grower, it has to be in production agriculture. It has to be in corn and soybeans. It has to be in the United States. And so that's where we wanted to have the biggest impact, and that's where we're focused on. And so you ask us where we're going, I didn't know that we would be here 3 years ago where we are today. So, but we've got this machine, this flywheel effect now between the synergies of the Earth Optics and Pattern in looking at chemistry, biology, and the physical attributes of the soil. Who knows where we'll be in a year or two.
So walk me through the process. If I wanted to do this on my farm this fall, I would call one of your dealers, probably go to your website and find a dealer close to me, call one of them. But then am I going to have to get them the information like, hey, I'm going to grow corn on this farm next year, or soybeans, or wheat, or whatever?
No. Our product is agnostic to what crop is going to get planted. So when you get the results back, you're going to tell us, I'm going to plant corn, and you're going to press the corn button, okay?
So you're not changing anything that you're looking for in the soil based on crops. Nope. You're doing it all.
So we pick up everything in the soil. So there's about 10,000 different species. There's about 500 billion microbes, and it all goes up into the cloud. And we have DNA sequenced the things that we're looking for, so we specifically find those things in there, and then we build that into what ends up becoming the crop plant.
Right.
I feel like right now is a good time for you to talk about robots and dark matter.
Oh yeah, dark matter.
Dark matter.
Okay, so here's how much we don't know about the soil. It is the most complex microbiome on Earth. As I said, we pick up everything, all of the biology in the soil. About 70% of what we sequence is considered to be dark matter, which means that it has not been identified. So 70% of all the DNA that's in the soil out there has not even been identified yet.
So who's identifying it? Are you guys helping with that?
Yeah, we've got people on staff that are really mining that dark matter so that we can then begin to discover additional things, because there's a lot of things that happen between species, you know. So let's say you have very good levels of trichoderma and mycorrhizal fungi. Well, the chances are high that you're going to have very lower levels of other fungal pathogens like Rhizoctonia, Fusarium, because they make that plant healthy and they fight off those things. So there's a lot of those interactions that are going on in the soil, and so if you got 70% that's dark matter, then we don't even know what we don't know right now.
I want to add, this points to another synergy we haven't talked about yet here today between the climate and carbon space and the agronomy space, which is that as someone who has taken part in selling biological type tools on the farm, just my experience is they work half of the time. And when they work, they really work. One of the things that's really cool about the Pattern offering is that they're able to better place biologicals after reviewing where it has worked. So they can identify the DNA things that are present or not present in an environment that a biological is successful or not in. So that's taking a success rate from something like 50 to 60% up to 95% in
That's
placing
huge.
a biological.
That is a big move.
And then the link with the climate and carbon space is that there's a number of biologicals that are scientifically proven to help sequester more carbon. So if we can better place those products on the right field, that's another additionality opportunity.
That's cool. So how many of these dark matters do you discover every year? Like actually go, oh, this is what this is now.
I wouldn't.
Is it a patentable thing? Like can you patent?
Well,
that stuff?
Could be a trade secret.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but definitely, that's not my department. My department is belly to belly with the grower and helping them succeed.
Would you believe this? That's not the first time I've heard that today.
Belly to belly?
No, trade secret. Can't tell you.
It would have been funnier if it would have been belly to belly, because I'd want to know who else said that. I just want to know. I want to know how much dark matter's in you.
Well, the human genome has been fully developed, so there are no secrets there anymore.
I don't know. Corey's pretty special. So this has been eye-opening, and I hope our listeners, I know they're going to have a lot more questions. They're probably shouting at their radio saying, you should have asked this, or why didn't you go deeper? Well, we kind of got caught off guard. Like it went more in depth than I think we were anticipating. So if they have questions, how best do they reach out to the two of you or somebody that can help get those answered?
So we're at earthoptics.com and pattern.ag. So those are our two websites. There's fillable forms on both of those websites to request more information or get in touch with Mike and I.
That's good. You got any more questions?
No, I don't. I'm generally interested. I want to come out when you guys are sampling a field around the area. I want to see some of the, deliverables and that kind of stuff. I think that'd be kind of cool.
But we'd be happy to sit down and go through some stuff with you.
That's great. Well, folks, thanks for coming over and hanging out with us this warm day. I know it can zap it out of you, but you hung out, delivered some great information.
You gave us shade and a breeze, so happy to be here.
It's the best we've had all day.
Hey, that's absolutely great. So thanks again for hanging out, listeners. We appreciate you listening as well. So until next time, have a good one.